The ongoing bird flu is ravaging the chicken population, driving up egg prices from about $2 for a dozen eggs last fall to now $8. Yikes. It's a big jump. And while overall inflation has continued from, of course, the prior administration, and while President Trump has only been in office for 1 month, this is one of the promises he has not kept yet. On TikTok, we've seen this, people invoking Donald Trump's many vows to lower exactly these kind of prices.
What? Oh, nothing. I'm just wondering how you're doing with those egg prices. Well, here you are asking about the egg prices. You know that there's the bird flu going on, and that is Biden's fault. I'm just saying that the availability of eggs and the price is not President Trump's fault. Oh, you mean the prices of eggs that y'all definitely said were Vice President Harris's fault during the campaign trail?
Now a dozen eggs will cost you around $4 thanks to Kamala Harris's inflationary policies.
Didn't Trump say on day one he was going to lower prices?
Didn't he say that? He did.
And I went on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, you know, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries.
A vote for Trump means your groceries will be cheaper. It'll also bring your grocery bill way down. I have more complaints on groceries.
Now, those grocery bills, they're not down. They're not level. As you're seeing from the reporting and the prices, they're up. And Americans are feeling this with reminders that, of course, reflect the problem, as well as Trump's lack of any solution so far, which brings us, as mentioned, to something that people live. This is not partisan politics. This is how things are going in the real world when you're out living your life. If you want to, for example, get a reasonably priced meal at a mainstay like Denny's. This set of developments does not mean that all problems under the Trump administration are somehow caused by the Trump administration. Indeed, I can say to you tonight, America, the question is often asked. Which came first? The chicken or the egg? Or as one poet put it, dealer or victim, I beg, what came first, moving chickens or the egg? Well, tonight's question is related. What came first? The bird or the egg prices? The bird flu or these cracked eggs of budget cuts? The metaphor may be difficult. The answer is simple. Bird flu did come first, along with wider rising prices over the past few years. And that, of course, is before Trump's election. But just as Trump struggled in his first term with the COVID response, he is struggling with this part of the job already now. Nonpartisan financial outlets, again, no agenda against MAGA, but they're reporting on President Trump's clear lack of interest in governing or solutions on these type of challenges. Trump's mass firings, gutting the expert staff that, for example, was doing bird flu response, which Bloomberg calls a stunning bureaucratic measure of incompetence, so blatant they're now, quote, scrambling to hire back some of those workers they fired. And food safety is the government's job, whether Trump finds that interesting or not, whether that drives the right press coverage or not. Trump and Musk continue to test the limits of how to fire all kinds of people, including the experts who do this work, who have the expertise, who are on the job. So Trump and his staff, in this case Musk, will be held accountable sooner or later for the results. More broadly, these are problems that come as the American consumer confidence is sinking, the largest monthly drop in over 4 years. So that shows concerns beyond even these recent economic problems under the past administration. Now, everyone knows voters famously hold presidents accountable for the economy. That's why President Bush could literally win a war and then quite quickly lose an election. It's why James Carville's maxim, "It's the economy, stupid," has endured for decades. Even as everything around us, from politics to media to technology, seems to be changing, we still hear, and boy, does it still ring true, "It's the economy, stupid." A lot of experts say those high prices over the last couple of years drove an inflated or higher opposition to the Biden-Harris administration. And that helped Trump eke out his 1.5-point national win. just late last year. So what came first? The chicken of this Trump second term or the egg of high prices? It's a tortured metaphor for a tortured time. And people seem angry in red districts and these protests as they watch President Trump come back after everything I just showed you and all those promises and then side with billionaires and plan tax cuts and firing all these people, some of whom are working on your food safety, others who might just be your neighbor, your fellow peer. Just a lot of firings. And all of that being prioritized over any apparent effort to fulfill the campaign vows about the prices and the economy. And let's be clear. I've told you before, there's a valid debate about the size of government or future budgeting. Congress is having budgeting discussions tonight about the future. But taking people who've already been hired to do these jobs in a bipartisan process and firing them all indiscriminately and cutting all these jobs across America, well, it doesn't play well. Even if, as Musk likes to say, they are government jobs, like that's automatically worse. Note what you see on your screen. The Trump-Musk effort targets over 900,000 jobs across red states alone. The impact there, if you want to look at it politically, is broad. And people are already, even in this algorithmically challenged spin world we're in, somehow people are getting the facts that so many of the cuts were so incompetent they had to be reversed, which means if you only believe Donald Trump, you still found out that Donald Trump and his administration did something really wrong recently because now they're doing the opposite. And that's what some of these headlines show. So we're seeing the beginning of a partial backlash. The layoffs playing poorly for one Republican congressman in Missouri who actually stood up and faced the public, which is somehow how we know this. Imagine how many are just hiding out or trying to avoid moments like this. And I want you to note before I play this for you, this is a district where the Republican didn't win by 1.5 points like Trump's national margin or 5 or 10. The Republican in the district here won by 45 points and is now getting booed.
There are jobs available. God has a plan. You are not a victim, you are a victor. And you will be able to get another job and provide for yourself and your family. I'm confident of that.
We are the hardworking federal employees that make this government run every single day. Yep. And we are being discounted by those in Washington.
Real people facing this, talking back. And again, you can do all the spinning online that you want, but sooner or later, when you're talking about real-world impacts from food and nuclear safety to those people I just showed you, out in communities, out in those red states I just showed you, and blue and purple, people will hear about this. This is part of our lived reality, just like the egg prices. Now, Elon Musk is pushing a very particular attack on federal workers. It has an argument to it. And again, there's been many debates about bureaucracies and the so-called, quote, deep state, and many of these things have different ideological angles. But let me tell you how it works here. Musk is trafficking in a very specific attack, which argues federal workers are basically illegitimate and expendable. They must justify themselves by email to his billionaire demands, which implies that somehow otherwise they'd be unjustified. Say you're doing bird flu research or nuclear safety. Now you got to turn around and spend time writing down to Elon Musk what you do on the nukes like he understands it. That's a demand even the Trump White House backed off of. But while the federal workers I mentioned are part of these wider protests we're seeing, and some of the Republicans who still say they want Donald Trump to succeed are warning how doing these cuts the wrong way or too broadly can actually stop the Republican Party in its tracks. You know, Elon Musk might not have been following U.S. politics back then, but Bush's second-term momentum was hobbled very infamously by the failed effort to change and cut Social Security. Social Security is just a very popular part of the long-term safety net, along with Medicaid. And former Trump campaign chair Steve Bannon is well aware of the risks exactly on this point.
Get into Medicaid. Medicaid, you got to be careful because a lot of MAGAs on Medicaid. I'm telling you, if you don't think so, you are dead wrong. Medicaid's going to be a complicated one. Just can't take a Medex to it, although I would love to.
He'd love to, but politically, he doesn't want Trump, who he helped elect the first time back when he had smaller support in the party, and the Republicans that Bannon works with now. He doesn't want them to lose their power in a quest that would also fail. Taking a big risk like Bush did and not getting the thing you want is usually ineffective politics and governance. So that's kind of a lot. Here we are. In all reality, it is way too early to tell whether some of these voters have a full-blown buyer's remorse for Trump. There are signs of concern from the politics you just saw, to the widening anger, to the huge crash in consumer confidence. But if it's not buyer's remorse, it's definitely sticker shock, with some consumers in need of retail therapy for their choices, from the shopping market to the political markets. And it's no secret that most people in the United States, if you peel away all the partisan stuff, and remember where we started last year, most people opposed the political choices being offered at the beginning of that year and through most of the campaign. We reported that at the time. I even made a Daft Punk reference about one more time and showed the polling that majorities in both parties wanted other choices. And so faced with that choice, and then, of course, the late swap that we got, so instead of the Biden-Harris agenda, you got the Harris agenda with limited time, people veered towards Trump for a bundle of reasons that included what I'm reminding you of tonight, what we saw from real people in those protests and those videos. It included the promise, the reasoning for what was a 1.5-point election was change and lower prices. Well, here we are just over a month in, and people are not getting lower prices yet. And many are finding these indiscriminate cuts, from food safety to nuclear safety to all of their peers in all of those red states, hardworking people losing jobs and having less money to spend in their local economies. People are finding that is not the change they had in mind.